Welcome to this very special edition of the KJ Masterclass Live, the show which ensures that you profit from your time spent here with experts, either through their industry insights, information, or simply learning from them. And today we have Robert Roose. He's a FinTech disruptor currently building Mint, a protocol that allows transferring any asset to any asset across any network. Welcome to the show, Robert.
Thank you. It's good to be here.
You are welcome. Welcome to the show. Welcome to India in this online form, Robert. And I'm sure not just in India, but a lot of people across the globe will benefit from what we are going to talk right now. We'll be talking about simplifying blockchain like technology. All we'll learn about all what's happening in this field. But before that, let's understand a bit more about you, about your journey, about your background, so that the listeners know who they are listening to at the
Yeah,
moment.
sure. So my name is Robert, and I've been involved with the tech and specifically entrepreneurship field for quite a long time. So I kind of got started building businesses when I was a teenager, and then I pivoted into kind of the data science industry, and that's where I found a lot of interest in trying to explore big data. This later turned into what we call AI. So that was like pre what we know of what AI is right now. And then in 2013, I got started in Bitcoin. And then during around like 2015 or so, I got interested in Ethereum, especially when cryptos keys came into the scene, and I got interested in stablecoins. That's the point where it kind of just clicked in my mind for me of like what this technology is actually capable of. And then for the last couple of years, I've been building some DeFi protocols around synthetic assets. And then most recently, I founded the protocol called Mint, which is a cross-chain swap platform that allows users to take their assets and swap them for any other assets on any other network. And the goal here is just really about interoperability and making blockchain not feel like blockchain technology.
Absolutely, absolutely, Robert. So I want to understand, from you, what are you said about your company that it's about transferring any asset to any asset across any network. Help us understand this part so that we can understand where the future is going.
Um, So the idea is quite simple at a high level, and that's because if you're coming from this perspective, if you don't know what crypto is, then the goal of us is really to keep it that way and make sure that you don't really understand these technical complexities. But if you step back and you look at where crypto is today, where you have to like download a wallet and then you don't really know what to do next, and you start to get some assets and you don't know how to transfer, you don't know how to use them, and then you find out that there's 50 other wallets that are available, and then there's this concept called like a blockchain, and there's like 20 of them available, and then you find out like, okay, if I have one token and then I want to go and use this other token, I can't do that. I have to go and download another wallet. And so if you're thinking from that perspective, where like today it's difficult and there's a big learning curve in order to just use crypto, and where we want to be is where you just have an app, and it's any app and all the apps are compatible, and you don't really have to think about it anymore. So if I have a token and it's in my MetaMask, and I want to move it to my Trust wallet or my Eternal wallet or NuFi wallet or Rabby wallet or any other wallets, I no longer have to really be thinking consciously about what that is actually meaning, because our protocol takes care of all that, the technical details. So when we say we allow transferring assets between networks, that's what we're doing. We're abstracting that from the average user so that they don't have to think about it. And so then it just comes to this concept of like a token is a token is a token. So it doesn't matter what's actually behind it. I just have this balance in my app, and now suddenly it feels a lot more like a banking application.
Okay, okay. So from a content perspective, it's almost like a Fediverse that from any particular, you can enter it through any particular account, and then you can also interact with others who are on different platforms. And perhaps from a general perspective, perhaps currency conversion, that you can just go to a central agency, whatever currency you hold, and you are able to get the currency that you want. Is it like that?
Yeah, is exactly like that without the central agency. So that's where our innovation comes in. Because currently, if you want to do this, you have to go through a central agency, which then means you have to do KYC, which means you have to submit your identity documents, and then you have to go through some certain restrictions. And if you've been paying attention to the news lately, Coinbase, for example, have been restricting a lot of accounts, and this happens quite regularly as like the cycle continues, where you think you have access to your money, but when it's in these centralized exchanges, it's not your money anymore. It's their money, and then they give you some permission. And if they feel like it, they will let you have the money and use it for a short amount of time. Whereas we want to make a permissionless system where you don't need to ask anyone for permission. It is your money. It stays your money. It's never our money. We are just helping you along the process. So there's no requirements to kind of verify your identity because it's a completely decentralized peer-to-peer system. So what that means is like you have hundreds or thousands of people participating in this network, and then they're kind of helping facilitate those swaps. So you no longer rely on just a single centralized entity to who can say yes or no. So like with this system, there's no yes or no. It's always a yes system.
Right, Robert. And you talk about, that it's important to be your own bank. What do you mean by that? And secondly, is it a good thing to be your own bank, uh, without, nowadays at least there are some checks and balances. How does that work? Help us understand that thought of yours.
Yeah, so the concept of being your own bank is just taking back control of your own money. So when we think about where we are today with the current traditional system in finance, we deposit our money and then another entity will own that. And what happens on their back end is like it becomes like a debt, and they owe us money. So as soon as we deposit the money, it's no longer in our possession. We just have a credit to them. And then they can go and invest that money into other asset classes. And then this is how they generate their revenue. And then they will sometimes provide us an interest rate back. And so we start to earn money on our savings. And being your own bank is really about taking control of that and removing that middleman so that your money is your money. And then if you want to go and invest that money, you don't have to pay that middleman, and you keep that profit for yourself. So what we have created is what we call the Mint savings account, where you deposit your assets and then you earn interest or yield on that assets. And so every 5 days you get rewards. And that's at a much higher rank than typically banks offer because you don't have the bank in the middle taking their huge cut. Now, on the caveat of that is with being your own bank comes a lot of responsibility. And that means that there's no one to kind of bail you out if something goes wrong. And so that's why we're not yet in this phase where being your own bank is for everyone. And a lot of people will want some sort of custodian where they have some protection or they have some centralized entity who is helping and protecting those assets. Because when you are your own bank, you have to manage all the security yourself. And then if you lose access to your wallet, then it's forever gone. You don't have anyone else to kind of help you get back those assets. So right now we're transitioning into this hybrid world where you have some people who are going to be their own banks, and these are typically more technically savvy people. And then you have like the more average population who are going to these Coinbases and Binances and Krakens, who are then like having this kind of alternative bank. And this is a big improvement. We can get better with this. And so the way that I envision this longer term is what we have like multifaceted, decentralized systems where it kind of works like a traditional exchange, but you have some backup redundancies where say you want like 3 social logins in order to log into your account and back up things. And then this removes this concept of like a seed phrase, which confuses a lot of people. So it feels more like traditional bank account, but instead of having one login, you might have 3 different logins, and then you might have a backup that is at a traditional custodian where you have like your passport and your other details in case you need emergency access to your funds. So that's kind of how I see we're heading.
Right, right, Robert. So you see, you yourself mentioned that there are no gatekeepers in that positive sense, because if you are using a banking system, it has many questions. People, as of today, people have in various countries they have their own questions, and that they are making money, they are losing money, and they are misusing that money many a times, and collapsing of certain systems, collapsing of banks. But many a times these banks have this almost like a sovereign guarantee that your money will not go anywhere, and that is, your own country is promising you that part. How do we get that sort of an assurance in any other form of transaction? And also it keeps the bad guys out. There are bad guys within the system also, but in that sense. And many a times, the blockchain technology or any other technology it looks like some of these bad guys are actually wanting to either evade tax or do not want to tell. Nobody wants to tell. There can be unknown sources of funds, which can again be not good money, bad money. Help us understand from this standpoint of view, because everything is linked to society. Do we want to be working outside the society, or should a system be for the society?
Yeah, I mean that's a great point. Definitely, the system should be for society, right? So that's definitely what we need to work towards. And then this concept of like insurance or being backed by the government is quite fascinating, because that's what keeps the system working, right? But this works until it doesn't. So if we look through even recent history, where you think that their money is being backed up, but then suddenly the rules change when a new politician comes into power and they wipe out savings accounts. And you want to think that will never happen to me. That will never happen in my country. But you think that until it actually does. And so that's the world that we're trying to avoid. We want more protections for the individuals. And so that's when we say be your own bank, that's what it's really mean. It's like someone else can't come and take your money. So when it's in your possession, it's really in your possession. And so that kind of removes that element of like an insurance system, because there in these traditional banking systems, there's that possibility that some executives could run away with your money. So then you need some insurance, right, from the government saying, hey, like if they do that and they run away, we're going to jail them, and then we're going to help reimburse you. When there's no longer any possibility, like when no one can go and run away with your money, then you don't need so much insurance. We are working on insurance system itself that we have embedded into our Mint savings account. And this is more for the technological risk, right? And so that's in case, if there's a technological failure rather than like a criminal failure, because the criminals are removed from this aspect, but there's always a technological risk that the technology is not going to work as expected. And so then we have this insurance fund, which is really replicating what these insurance funds offered by the government are doing. So like if something bad does happen, then there's a way to kind of protect the assets, or reimburse the assets that were lost. And in terms of like where we have been with crypto is typically, because it's been so ostracized from society, like it has involved like a lot of questionable activities. And I think this is by force of the government's not really accepting adopting this, and this is because crypto is becoming more acceptable and more composable within the traditional financial system. We're seeing a lot more good actors come in, because before it's kind of when you're criminalizing anything, right? If you outright ban something, then you force everyone who wants to use that technology or use that system, they're essentially a criminal. But the goal of government shouldn't be to outright ban these technologies that they don't understand, but to like figure out what are the right and applicable laws. And so that's what we're seeing, especially in Europe and in the USA now. And I believe in India they've made some positive changes, where we really need the lawmakers to not like be scared of the technology and start to think, okay, we need to start regulating and thinking about sensible laws, not using these laws that were invented 100 years ago. They don't apply to this technology, but thinking, okay, how can we protect our citizens? How can we make sure that our citizens are not excluded from these? Because some other countries would just outright exclude people, and that's never going to be a good way. But we got to figure out like what's a way to integrate this into the existing system. And this is also where our mint protocol comes in play, because it's fully interoperable. So as long as the laws permit in your country, then you can have that fiat gateway. So you can, then we have that mechanism to go from the crypto world to the fiat world. So and we're making that to the point where you don't even consciously think about it, right? It's just like I have money in an app. Now I can put it money into a card. I can put it money into a bank. I can send that money to another person. So now it no longer feels like it's this separate system. It's now a integrated system of society.
Right, right. So the price of Bitcoin, it has jumped to $100,000, if I understand. So, is that a good news or not so good news? Is it running beyond its price? And secondly, is it going to stay? Is it only a flash in the pan with, Trump coming back to power? People are very positive about it. How should people understand this jump?
So to understand this jump, you have to realize that this is a speculative asset, and it's used predominantly as a store of value now. And so what that means is like people are using Bitcoin as an alternative to gold because it's a scarce asset. And so if you look at the early days of gold, it is very volatile. And a lot of people get confused, or they don't understand like what is the value of Bitcoin. And it's like, well, it's like kind of like asking what is that value of gold. You can't eat gold, you can't use it. And so then where this price volatility comes is everyone is debating about how much they want to pay. So right now it's at around $100,000, and so that's because some people say, okay, I want to buy it for 100,000, and other people say, no, that's too expensive. So they want to be selling it because they bought it maybe a year ago at $40,000, and so they want to be profiting from that speculative difference. And so Bitcoin is always going to be this kind of volatile asset, similar to how gold has always been volatile. And Bitcoin does move the industry as a whole. So when Bitcoin moves, the rest of the crypto assets move. This is not really an area that I focus on, because that's a more speculative area of crypto where people are just trying to make money. And I'm trying to come into it as like, how do people actually use money in order to benefit society as a whole? Because what we find is most people don't want to use Bitcoin. They want to use some sort of other stable assets, which is why we've built multiple stable coins, and why we have built a stable savings account, and why we have this full interoperability with other stable assets. And so you always want to have options. So if I have some Bitcoin and I use it as a store of value, but of course you're not going to want to have everything in Bitcoin, right? Because the price of bread remains constant or relatively constant, but the price of Bitcoin is going to change every day. Tomorrow it might be 90,000, next week it might be 150,000, and so that can be good or bad, but you can't really plan your finances around that. And so the best way to think of Bitcoin is just like as an investment, like it's most likely going to go up over time, just as like stocks in general go up in time. But to make a prediction about what the price of the S&P 500 is going to be in 12 months is going to be insanity, right? Like in 10 years it's going to be higher than it is today, but no one is able to make that prediction of like how much higher, and during that journey it's going to go up, it's going to go down, it's going to be a scary ride. And so that's the way to kind of think of Bitcoin, is like if you do want to invest and you want more money than you have today, in 10 years time, then you want to hold some Bitcoin because it's going to be a hedge against inflation. But that journey is going to not be a straight line. It's going to go up, it's going to go down, and it's going to be very wild. You're going to have 20% swings, 80% swings. So it's definitely not for the faint of heart.
Who is Bitcoin's closest competitor? Bitcoin is it in terms of blockchain, it's a technology. You talked about stable coins. So what are these stable coins? Is it another sort of a technology like blockchain, or is it another sort of a coin like Bitcoin? See, a lot of people find it difficult to understand this whole terminology. There was Ethereum, and suddenly all those things were lost. Even I forgot so many things. There was earlier talk of NFT. Nowadays, rarely we get to hear about NFT. And also, how is there going to be one terminology which will make it easy for people understanding? Like in currency, we all know that okay, a nation has a currency, dollars or any other. In India we have got Indian rupee. So we find okay, this is one thing. Then there are not 200 things that one has to remember about. So what is your sense about all these different technology? Are they creating confusion, or will they be giving more options to the people?
Yeah, right now it's doing a bit of both, right? So what has happened is that we've built this completely permissionless system where anybody can do anything, and that has resulted in a ton of innovation. But with innovation, it means like people are just creating thousands of new coins and tokens every single day. And so for a newcomer, it becomes very overwhelming to just like go onto one of these crypto tools and have a look and just see, oh, there's 1,000 new things today. It's like, so I'm overwhelmed. But for a newcomer, I think it's better to just not pay attention to like the innovation and just come to it as like what am I trying to do, what are my goals? And if you come to it from a goal oriented perspective, you'll get a lot better progress. And so in terms of like what's the closest competitor of Bitcoin, I would say that Bitcoin is in a class of its own because it was the first technology in this space, and is now narrative is a store of value. And so society as a whole has accepted that Bitcoin is a store of value. And so there can only be a limited number of stores of value. So the other store of value is gold. So Bitcoin and gold are kind of very competitive. And so then it's a bet of like which system is going to take hold in the future. Are we going to have this new digital one that takes hold, or is people going to really cling on to this hard mineral that comes from the earth? And that's a great speculative question, and you can make some bets on that and make money along the way. But Bitcoin doesn't itself have competition from a store of value perspective, but where it has competition is what is the use case, or like what can you actually do with a Bitcoin. And so if you're using Bitcoin for the purpose of sending money to another person, then all of a sudden we have like 100 different competitors. And the main cryptos that we use for this are USDT and USDC. And so what these are is basically crypto versions of the dollar. And we have versions of like the euro and the yen and the Australian dollar. And so these easier for people to understand. And this is going to be the onboarding ramp for most people, where they can go from a bank account to the crypto world, and they will be able to conceptualize that a lot easier, because it's something they already understand. So like rubies or something like that. And so this is probably what most people are going to use. And then we enter into like this meme mania, where what the way to kind of think of meme coins is it's a social currency, and it's about attention. And so these meme coins become popular based on the trends in the current world, and based on what is popular. So Dogecoin was one of the more famous ones, and people kind of just attach on that because it is one of the first. And now it is quite highly valued because a lot of people know about Dogecoin, and so they come and they buy it. And these are a lot more speculative, and they're a lot more bubble-like. And then there are some other memes that just like they come and they go. And this is, I would more consider this kind of like the casino aspect of crypto. And so like if that's something that you want to get exposure to, everyone has the freedom. I personally don't participate in that because it's one of those high risk, high rewards. And so like if you really do want high rewards, you have to then accept that the majority of people are going to lose money. So like don't come into meme coins thinking that you're going to make a ton of money. You might, but it's like kind of going to Las Vegas, right? It's like it's exciting, it's fun, and you have the possibility to make a lot of money, but most people go home poor. But if you come away with like, okay, I might come home poor, but I'm going to come home with some experience. It's going to be fun along the way because I get to learn about all this technology. That's probably the best mindset to come into this. But if you just want to use crypto, that's where the stable coins come into play. So like I use stable coins every day because I pay my team in stable coins, I pay my invoices in stable coins. So I'm basically using stable coins as an alternative to a bank, and I'm trying to move toward this world where I no longer have a bank account. I just have an app on my phone, and that's how I do my banking.
Absolutely. There is much to understand about this sort of a world. I'm sure a lot of people will learn more about it as they go along. I'm also trying to understand, about all these things, but discussions like you, smart people like you, help us understand all these things in a better. So all those people who would want to learn more from you, more about you, about Mint, what is the best way for them to connect with you, Robert?
Yeah, the best way is just to follow us on our X accounts. So that's Mint. You can look it up. And if you want to ask questions directly, then head over to our Discord. So if you go to our mint.ai website, you'll find the Discord link. And then there you'll be able to ask any question you want. So yeah, absolutely anything. We're a friendly community. So that's the place to go to learn and talk directly to either me or other people in the community.
Wonderful. With this, it's a wrap on this very special edition of the KJ Masterclass Live. Thank you so much indeed for joining us.
Thank you.